Hey everybody, welcome back. Today, well, let me start by saying I was in another forum and a young man asked me, what does it actually mean to be a conservative? And I thought, what a great question. And depending on who you ask, you're going to get some wildly different answers. So I thought I'd give a description of conservatism and what it is, what it isn't, and kind of keep it generic, maybe even a little vague, but, that's kind of the beauty of conservatism. But I want to try not to melt any snowflakes in the process. And I should probably not use the term snowflakes if I don't want to melt any. So I'll try to stay away from that. But I know there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with what I say, and that's fine. But especially those that think we're some fear-mongering, white supremacist, dictator-loving band of bigots. But I digress, and I probably will several times in this video, but I'm going to try to keep it on topic. So a lot of people will say that conservatives wish to conserve. And that's, the basis of the word conservative, of course. And while that is technically true, the meaning behind that a lot of times isn't. What a lot of people think when they think we want to conserve is that we want to go back to the 1950s. Where all women are barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen cooking dinner. Make me a sandwich. All that wonderful meme stuff. That's not it at all. What we really want to conserve, ready for this? The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, Second Amendment, all the way through the 10th. And then all of those that have been added since then. So, why do we want to conserve that? Well, let's see. It's been working for about almost 250 years now. And I think it's worked pretty well. We are the most thriving country in the world. We have the best chance of raising somebody out of poverty of any country in the world. I mean, these are statistics you can look up. They are very verifiable, no problem. But the real basis of conservative politics is individual liberty. That means we wish to conserve and defend the liberty of the individual and also depend upon individual responsibility. Yeah, that's right. You're actually responsible for your own actions. I know, hard to believe, right? Yeah, see, when my neighbor does something bad, I'm not responsible for that. When I do something bad, my neighbor, my group of friends, my race, my class, whatever, they are not responsible for my actions. I am. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's being blamed for things they've never been personally involved in. For example, not just blaming, but being lumped in with people. Okay, all major religions and conservatives have a healthy respect for religion and approve of such. It's in the First Amendment, after all. But all major religions believe that salvation is an individual matter. Now, I don't care if you're atheist, agnostic, Christian, Buddhist, it doesn't matter. This is pretty much self-explanatory. But, for example, let's put I'm in front of the pearly gates with, I don't know, St. Peter or Allah or God or Jesus or Osiris, whatever. Whoever is there is looking at me and says, you know what, you really weren't all that much in life, but you hung around some really good people, so come on in. Yeah, it doesn't really work that way. So we believe that liberty is still today the most precious possession, and individualism is the epitome of liberty. Make sense? So, think of this. Individualism includes important things such as human rationality, individual property rights, natural rights, the protection of civil liberties, constitutional limitation of government, free markets, and individual freedom from restraint. How's that one? Not too many people talk about the Fourth Amendment too much, but I'll probably touch on that later. But with that said, most classical liberals these days, a lot of times they hear this stuff and think, hey, that's what I think. Or at least I think most of it. I can get on board with most of it. Well, before the progressives, and I use that term really, really loosely, classical liberals and conservatives had a lot of the same goals, actually. The real difference between the two was, how to get there. The approach to get to those goals. So that's why we're seeing a lot of classical liberals leaving the Democrat Party. I think so anyway. And again, I digress. So let's move on. So let's talk about conservatism at a governmental level. So, the first question that a government asks or should ask is, what's good for everyone? And by everyone, we mean all individuals. What's good for a single individual isn't right, because that's just megalomania. What's good for some individuals, or even the majority of individuals, well, that just leads to partisan politics, which at best gives you Nancy Pelosi. At worst, gives you Rwanda. So, and it can't be individuals as a whole, because there's no such thing. Individuals are only available individually. Kind of makes sense, but, observing the process of mankind over centuries, we've seen that the things that are really good for everyone are the things that have increased the accountability of the individual, the respect for the individual, and the power of the individual to determine his own fate. Think about that. Determine your own fate. Seems like a pretty good thing, right? I would think so. So, we have in our Constitution, it says the pursuit of happiness. It does not say in any governmental document the right to happiness. It says you have the liberty to pursue happiness in whatever means you see fit, as long as you're not stepping on the toes of someone else's individual liberty. So, then we get the rise of the Industrial Revolution and private enterprise, which means, we can do it all without going back to medieval times and battling it out with broadswords. Though, I will say, there's something cool about seeing maybe MAGA Hulk up against Charles Schumer. Sorry, I had to have a little fun with it. But, so, that leads us to the question, how do we build a political system that meets the needs of everyone? Whew, that's a tough one. Well, we need to ensure a free society based on individual liberty and self-rule. Because, we can't go around and find out what all individuals want. You can't listen to, 300 million people and ask each one of them what they want and have them give you an answer. That's just not going to work. And we know polling doesn't work. So what we need to do is talk about individual liberty and self-rule. Generally, though, that's where we get, called something like selfish, or we have some me first dogma, or, people tend to confuse conservatism with social Darwinism, and, nothing could be further from the truth. But I will say, of course, we are selfish, but in the same sense that breathing is selfish. Just because you want to breathe doesn't mean you want to suck the breath out of every individual that you come across. Get it? I mean, it seems pretty simple to me, but that's really, the gist of that. This is where the Bill of Rights really comes into play. The Bill of Rights not only protects us from bad people and bad laws and bad regulations it also protects us from an ever-increasing net of governmental regulations that even the best governments tend to produce. But while doing so, it leaves as much life possible to simple common sense, or at least local opinion. Frankly, common sense, though, is not all that common anymore, it seems. The Ninth Amendment, I know usually you hear the First Amendment, Second Amendment, sometimes the Fourth, but, and of course, if you're Bill Clinton, you state the Fifth a lot. But the Ninth Amendment says, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Well, the 10th goes on to say, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Well, you know what? It's these suit yourself, pull yourself up by your big boy pants or your big girl panties, free country powers that conservatives wish to conserve. Is this making any sense? Am I getting through at all? I hope so. But, you know, don't get me wrong. I understand there are people who are just not able to do that without some assistance from others. I get it. You know, whether they're children or have an infirmity or an affliction or a condition that might even be permanent. You know, but because we as conservatives don't think governmental programs to cover all different scenarios are necessary, we're often labeled as mean-spirited or hypocritical or selfish again, or some other such nonsense. You know, in fact, charity is an axiom of conservatism. Charity is one of the great responsibilities of freedom. And conservatives take that responsibility pretty seriously. I'm sure you can find all sorts of analysis and that will show you that Republicans tend to spend vastly more on charities than Democrats do. You don't think so? Look up how much, as a percentage of their wealth, how much Bernie Sanders gives and how much Donald Trump gives. Look it up. It's easy to find. Because, you know, remember, there is no virtue in compulsory governmental charity, nor is there any virtue in advocating for it. Think of it this, you know, a politician who says he's caring or he's sensitive to the issues, you know, he wants to expand government charity. All he's saying is that, you know, he's willing to do good with other people's money. Well, damn, who isn't? You know, I'll do good all day long with your money. Easy. Now, okay, now I'm going to get into kind of a left-right scenario just a little bit. I'm trying not to get too anti anybody. Not too much, anyway, as much as I can, but the preamble of the Constitution says that it promotes the general welfare. It does not say guarantee the general welfare, and it certainly doesn't say give welfare benefits to all the people in the country not doing so well, even if not doing so well means they're in front of one of their 3 flat screen TVs holding an iPhone and not wanting to work. Now, a liberal would argue that these people are watching TV because they lack opportunity, that they're uneducated, disenfranchised, disadvantaged, life is unfair. And as a conservative, we might actually agree. But the problem between conservatives and liberals is that a liberal will say government has enormous power. Let's use that power to make things good. The government doesn't make things good. The government doesn't make anything. And what they do try to manage outside of their normal responsibilities, they tend to screw up a lot. So what I'm saying is, you know, the liberal point of view, you know, it's the wrong tool for the job. It's like the liberal is trying to fix a wristwatch with a ball-peen hammer. I hope this is making some sense, and I hope I'm getting through to some people. You know, I could go on. I think I'm going to end this here, but I mean, I could go on with conservatism in economics, conservatism with foreign policy, conservatism with all sorts of different scenarios. I could make this 3, 4, 5 hours long, but I just wanted to give you guys a general idea on what conservatism is and what it isn't. I think there's a lot of misconceptions. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings, and I think there are a lot of falsehoods being stated about conservatives, especially when it comes to racism. It just doesn't make sense. We are the part of the political spectrum that believes each person should be valued by their own merits. You know, judge a man by the content of his character. Ring a bell? So, with that, thank you for watching, and thank you for tuning into my first ShedX talk. That's it. Have fun.